Uses of the microscope. Materials research and industry. Microscopes, both optical and electron, are used by scientists whose work involves testing different materials. Lots of tests are carried out, such as tests to see how much stress a material will take before it breaks. The material may be stretched, squashed, heated, or cooled, and is then looked at under the microscope to see if its structure has changed. Scientists also test to see how new materials react to chemicals, for example, how a new man-made fiber reacts to different detergents. Special microscopes are often used for looking at shiny metals and rocks. The light is directed down the ocular tube and bounces off the metal straight back up the tube. Special light attachment. Some microscopes used to look at metals may have a hot stage. The stage heats up and cools the metal, so the effects of temperature can be studied actually while they are happening. Microscopes are also used to check finished products for faults, such as cracks, before they are sold. This is called quality control. Also, when a product or piece of machinery fails, a microscope is often used in the investigation. Look at different metals under your microscope to check for wear and tear. Use medium or low power and top lighting. You may see worn edges or tiny cracks at points of particular stress. In some industries, microscopes are needed in the actual process of production because the things being made are so small. When gemstones are being cut or inspected, for example, the craftsman needs to look at them through a microscope. Another good example is the electronics industry. Airplane crashes, for example, may be caused by metal fatigue, when tiny cracks appear in metal and get bigger because of vibration. Fragments from a crashed plane may show up metal fatigue when examined. Be careful with sharp edges. Tools, needles, cutlery, nails, keys, pen nibs, worn edge of knife blade. Many modern electronic circuits, example in wristwatches or computers, are microscopic. Archaeology. Optical and electron microscopes help archaeologists build up a picture of how people lived long ago. Tiny things found at an archaeological dig are examined for clues. For example, certain features of animal bones found in ancient human settlements tell archaeologists whether the animals were wild or domesticated, which shows whether the people were hunters or farmers. Preserved grain shows that land was farmed with particular crops, and preserved pollen also helps in working out the picture. Different types of pollen show the different plants which grew in a particular area. Preserved grain, special animal bone features, and no tree pollen shows this land was farmed. Lots of tree pollen shows this area was a forest. Food and the environment. The microscope is used widely to help farmers and people who package and store food. For example, it is used to investigate the bacteria and other parasites which cause animal deaths or crop failures. The fight to produce more food also involves microscopes. Careful dissection of particular parts of a plant under a microscope lead to the development of new, faster-growing strains of food plants and virus-free versions of plants. Dissecting out healthy plant cells using a stereo microscope. The cells are then grown in jelly and produce a virus-free plant. The preservation of food or treating it so it can be kept for longer is carried out in a number of ways, such as cooking the food and then canning or bottling it, or pickling, freezing, or drying it. In all cases, samples of the food are checked under a microscope at regular intervals to make sure that no tiny organisms have crept in, such as bacteria or fungal spores. See pages 16 to 19. Scientists analyze the levels of different particles in the air, soil, and water under a microscope to find out about pollution. See what is in your air by leaving a jelly dish, see page 16, or some strips of sticky tape out in the open for about 24 hours. Stretch the tape around a frame of some kind. Frame could be wood or stiff cardboard. Strips of tape sticky side outwards facing the wind. Weight it down with bricks or stones if necessary. Jelly dish. Cut out a sliver of jelly or a piece of tape with specks on it and put it on a slide, sticky side up if tape. Put a drop of water on it. Then, put a cover slip over the top and look at the particles using bottom lighting and fairly high power. What you see depends on the area you live in and the time of year. You may have caught tiny insects. Pollen is found almost everywhere. Grass pollen mainly in towns, all sorts of pollen in the country. This causes hay fever. There will be lots of soot particles in town air. Fungal spores. Archaeologists also look at preserved fibers to show what people wore, as well as fragments of ancient buildings, pottery, and tools. Archaeologists can often create a very detailed picture of how the people and their homes must have looked from closely examining all the different materials and the way they were put together. A cloth fragment may prove the people could weave. A piece of bone may show signs of sharpening for use as a tool. Houses can sometimes be reconstructed after close examination of tiny fragments.